Okay, so we made a program that gets as input these two objects and gives us as output these two other objects, antipode latitude and antipode longitude. Both of them are floats. Okay, but that's not very impressive. Like getting some coordinates here. I mean, what is this place? Where is this? It's not very exciting, is it? So how about displaying a map instead of just these coordinates? Well, we can do that. How do we do that? Well, again, think in terms of objects. So in the real world, I said map. So how do we represent a map in the Python language? Well, if you have a look at what objects you have available, so you'd use the dir built-ins function. So that will give you all the possible objects, built-in objects that you have available in Python. There are also third-party objects, and you can also make your own objects, and we will do that later. But first, the first thing you can do is to look if there is an available object in Python. So you can use this method, or you can also ask on Google and see what others are saying. And I'll do just that. But let me take things step by step to show you how Python works. And so here we have objects such as float. So float is a type actually, and this type creates object or object instances. So this is an object. You can also call it as an object instance created by the float type. And we also have the int type. It created int object instances. So do we have a map? Well, there is a map somewhere here, and you can use a help function to see what that is. But don't get too excited, because even though the name is map, this is about some other things. It's about processing some list of numbers or some list of other objects, which we will cover later. So this is not at all about making geographic maps. So forget about map. And so this is a list again. By the way, this is a mix of object types. So you can use the type function to check what float is. And it will tell you that it's a type. So float is a type. Type is the object, don't confuse type with this type. So this is a function that is checking what float is, and it tells you that float is a type. If you checked what print is, you'll get this. So print is a built-in function or method. So the idea is that we don't have an object to create maps using what is available directly from Python. In that case, the easiest thing you can do is to perform a search on Google, such as making a map in Python. And then you'll have to do some research to see what people are saying. And of course, you need some experience, which you'll get in this course, on how to understand these tutorials, how to understand the terms. So I know that they are talking about the Python package called volume. You see the code here, import volume, and then you make a map out of volume. So this is what experienced programmers do. They ask on Google, see what people are suggesting, because these packages, such as this package that will give us a map, these packages change. So now volume is popular, but later there is another package that comes up which is better. And so you always want to do some internet research to see what people are saying. And then what you do is you go to install that particular package. If you are using a terminal, such as the CMD on Windows or the terminal on Mac, you'd install that package with the Python command or Python 3 command, whatever you'll use, and then an M, and then pip install, and then the name of the package, which is volume. So think of these packages as extensions that give us extra objects for Python because not everything can be shipped with the Python installation. If you're using Thonny, the Thonny IDE, you don't have to use this command. You can directly go to Tools, Manage Packages, and search here for volume. You have to type the name correctly of the package, volume. Go to Find Package from PyPy. PyPy is where all these third-party packages are basically stored online. So you need internet to install this package. And here you can also see the home page of the package. So if you click that link or copy and paste it on your browser, it will take you to the home page of that package. So it tells you how to install the package, and then you have the documentation link where you can see how to use it. So for example, you can go to Quick Start, and so you have some code here with examples. And that's it. So go to install. The installation was successful. Close. And now, I know that this volume package from volume import map. This volume package has a map object type. So just like float, volume has map, and this map is to abstract maps. In other words, to make maps in Python. So we're talking about a map object, and I'll see how I use it. Let me use an identifier. My map, you can name it whatever you like, as far as it doesn't start with a number and it doesn't have spaces, so it's a variable name, identifier name. Then goes the type, map with parentheses. So just like we use float with parentheses, we use map. Now map also gets an attribute, just like float does. But the attribute of the map is a pair of values. So it's not a single value, such as the float one, which was a single number, 40.09. This is two values. So here we are talking about another object, how to represent multiple values in Python. Well, you can do that using a list. If you look here, when we did dir built-ins, you can see that there's a list there. So if you do help list, you see how to use it. So it has some methods, and this is what the list type gets as attribute. And with iterable, Python means an object made of other objects. Basically, this is the idea. And so we can here create an identifier which will identify a list type, and inside those parentheses we put some other parentheses to put that iterable, this one in here. What that is going to have inside is antipode latitude, comma, and make a space. You can also choose not to make a space, but it's good to have a space there to make the code more readable. Antipode longitude. And that is a list object. So a list object is used to store multiple objects. It can be any kinds of objects. So you could also put here directly the value of antipode latitude, but the value is associated with this identifier in our case, with the antipode latitude identifier, which has this value. So it's good to have the identifier there. And then what we use here is location. So the object, the list object. So float object, list object, map object. They have the same syntax, as you can see. If I run this now, nothing will happen apart from having the coordinates displayed again, because we have these two print functions. Nothing is happening because what happened is that we created an object in Python memory. So this object here. And we can also choose to print it out. You can try that, but don't expect anything exciting. So this is what we get. We get a string representation, a textual representation of the object in the terminal, because the terminal cannot display a map, right? You need a photo viewer program or a browser to actually display a map. And so far what we have is an abstraction of a map inside Python. To be able to get a map, we would use the save method. And you can actually use the dir method to see that save is one of the map methods. So let me go ahead and use that, my map.save. So the method has this syntax, just like the other methods. Inside the parentheses, you put the argument of save, which is the name of the file which will contain the map. It will be an HTML file. How do I know this information that we are creating a HTML map? Well, you can find that out from the documentation of volume, which I showed you earlier here. So, we're talking about a name of a file. A name is text in real world, right? How do we represent text in Python? Well, using a string data type. So str inside the parentheses there, write something like antipode.html. That is a file name, an HTML file name. And you see this grayed out area here? It's grayed out because I used more closing brackets than necessary. So delete one closing bracket and everything is fine. If I execute the script now, the terminal is going to display the same output, of course, but if you go to view files, and you'll see that an antipode.html file has been generated. So you need to go to this folder now in your file explorer, in your computer, just navigate there, whatever method you prefer. I prefer to use the explorer command and the dot. If you are on Mac or Linux, you'd want to use open instead of explorer, and the dot also. Execute that and this Windows Explorer will open on Windows, Finder will open on Mac. Antipode, that's the file. Double click it, open it with a browser, and this is what we get. So it's ocean, and it's somewhere near New Zealand. And that is the map that we generated with our Python program. And so this is how to make a program in Python, and this is quite a simple program, but it contains all the necessary things you need to know about Python. So objects and methods and conditionals. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll talk to you later.